We're going to be talking about what a good doctor will ask and what a good patient will tell. And we all know doctors are not created equal. Same goes for patients. Hi guys, my name is Maggie. I am a 27-year-old nurse who also happens to have Crohn's disease and an ostomy bag. We educate about chronic illness, we talk about some uncomfortable topics, and generally just share about living life despite having a pesky little disease. If you like this video, I would so love and appreciate if you liked and subscribed, and let's get into it. Alright, for starters, I've had some awesome doctors, amazing doctors. I've also had some pretty awful ones, like the GI doctor who thought I had anorexia when I actually had a bowel obstruction. That was super fun. But like I said before, doctors are not created equal, so your appointments might look totally different if you have a GI appointment versus a endocrinology appointment. They might look so different. And in a perfect world, a doctor or a medical professional, whoever you're seeing, would have all the time in the world to talk to you about everything going on. But obviously that is not the case. We are seeing more and more sick patients and sicker patients, which means that a lot of the time that would otherwise be spent with you is taken up by a lot of patients. So this video is aimed at helping you have better conversations and using your time wisely when you are actually with your doctor. That can be extremely hard to do for so many reasons. You might get overwhelmed when you're on your appointments, like me. You might not understand what your doctor's saying, and then you spend a lot of time asking questions about what the heck they're even talking about. So hopefully in this video, I kind of give you a little bit more insight into how it works for medical professionals and sort of the way a lot of them think when they are talking to you about whatever is going on with you. And using that knowledge, I'm going to give a couple of suggestions on how you can help run your doctor's appointment to get the most out of it. And the really interesting thing right now in this weird, bizarro world that we're living in, telehealth has obviously exploded. I think a lot of us who had never experienced telehealth before have all experienced it now, whether it be by choice or not by choice. A lot of doctors' offices are requiring that you do telehealth appointments unless there is some reason that you need to be seen in person. And the really cool thing about this is that patient satisfaction in relation to how they feel their conversations are going with their doctors is going up. People like telehealth, so it's giving us an opportunity to have a better, more fulfilling conversation with our doctor. And I completely agree with that. My in-person appointments versus my telehealth appointments, I feel like they've gone so much better, which is surprising because I am so not a person who enjoys virtual meetings or telephone calls or text messages or anything like that. I am such an in-person person. So something to keep in mind if you are a new patient, you might have that happen. You might have a telehealth appointment as your very first appointment with a doctor. So in the medical field, there are different ways to approach getting information out of a patient. Some doctors, or we'll just say medical professionals as a generalization, because you might be seeing a nurse practitioner or a PT or physician's assistant. I don't know, you might be seeing any of those, so we'll just say medical professional. There are two types of questions that they can ask you. They can ask sort of an open-ended question where it's very general, very broad. How are you? And you fill in all the blanks. You talk about all the stuff you want to talk about, which in theory is really great because the idea is you're going to basically let the patient tell everything they know. Will the patient necessarily do that? They might not. If they're shy, if they're nervous, like myself, you go in there and you're asked that question and you kind of just go, I'm good. Yeah, totally fine. The medical professionals might also ask very specific closed-end questions like, are you having blood in your stool? Are you getting up 8 times a night to have diarrhea? Which gets you exact answers, but it kind of limits the information that you're going to get from that one singular question. And mind you, the clock is ticking, so we only have so much time to ask questions. Just like your medical professional should be doing a sweep of your chart just to update themselves on, maybe anything that you've reported outside of this appointment or recent tests that you've had, you need to prepare for that appointment as well. It is so imperative that you do that. Everyone has their own methods of how to go about this. I'm just going to give you some suggestions as a weird patient nurse hybrid, whatever this is. So in the medical field, we have something called review of systems, and that's basically going head to toe anything that could and would be wrong with you. We try to cover by reviewing your systems. And this is something that you can go onto Google if you want to have a list of what they are. But like I said, head to toe. Hospitals all have their different review of systems, different lists, different orders of how that list goes, but I would use it in my nursing role to give report. It was really helpful because I could cover every part of the patient and kind of have a reminder on a sheet, and I would be able to give the next nurse a really great whole picture of the patient rather than just focusing on one part of that patient. So if you were to look at me as an inflammatory bowel disease patient, you might think, let's focus on GI with you. But as you've probably seen if you've watched this channel, my IBD has affected many parts of my life. I'm going to give you what I remember from our order of review of systems so you guys kind of get what I'm talking about before you go do your own research. So we would start with neurological, aka brain stuff. Then we would go to HEENT, which is head, eyes, ears, nose, throat. Then we would go down to the cardiac system because that's kind of middle. Respiratory system, then you get down to GI and GU, your gynecologic and your urologic issues. When I think of legs, I think of musculoskeletal issues because a lot of those issues relate to your ability to ambulate. So I think that's why it's in that order. Don't quote me there. And then you would go on to skin or integumentary, and then we would always talk about psychosocial issues because most of the diseases that you deal with have some sort of psychosocial relation. So that is kind of the order that we would go in. So I would talk about all those things with the oncoming nurse to really give a whole picture. So if I did have a GI patient and that was their focus, I would start with, okay, they have IBD, but let's start off with, if we were talking about HEENT, are they having any throat or mouth lesions? Going to cardiac, are they having a high heart rate because, maybe they are fluid deficient. Maybe their blood pressure is low because of that also. Respiratory issues, if they're not walking enough, their lungs might sound a little junky, and I would go all the way down that list. Now, sometimes there were sections or systems that didn't matter, there wasn't anything going on. So a suggestion, if you're wanting to look at a review of systems method for yourself, is to order the systems that you think are most important to least important. So I would probably, for myself, if you know me well, I would go GI, then I would go to GU because I have had kidney surgery in the last year. I've had gynecological issues in the last year, so that would be my second. I would probably then go to, honestly, I'd go to psychosocial because my IBD, my gynecological issues, these are affecting me in my life and in my mind. So that's how I would order, and those are the three things that I would focus on the most in my appointments. Editing Maggie here, sorry to cut into the video. I just wanted to clarify why it's important to do this sort of method and think about you as a whole patient, because a lot of diseases can be interrelated, a lot of symptoms that you have. So even though you might be going to a GI appointment, there are other systems like GU and gynecology, like I kind of talked about already, that can affect it. And it is important to let your doctor know that, especially when it comes to medications that you're on that maybe other doctors have prescribed you, especially if your doctors are in different health systems or hospitals. So when you've got your systems that you want to focus on in your appointments, There's a few things to keep in mind when you're talking about each one. You're going to want to talk to your doctor about the symptoms in relation to that system, as well as the signs. Symptoms and signs are two different things. Symptoms are things that you're feeling, but others are not able to measure or see, whereas signs are something that a doctor or a nurse can tell is going on with you. So my symptom could be abdominal pain. Obviously, nobody else can see or feel my pain, but a sign like a fever is something that can be measured, and a nurse could come take my temperature, see that it's high, so everybody is aware that yes, she does indeed have a fever. So before your appointment, write down your system, write down your symptoms and signs related to it. Then you're going to want to talk about aggravating factors, which is basically what makes it worse. If I have abdominal pain, does eating corn make it worse? In reverse of that, is there anything that makes it better? Relieving factors. So does using a heating pad help my stomach pain? These are things that your doctor may ask you, or you can give to them. That's information that you can provide them with so they have a better picture. Another important thing is to tell your doctor or your medical professional how this has affected your quality of life. So if I'm having abdominal pain and I'm using the bathroom 20 times a day, doctor, I can't go to work. I can't go to school because of this. You'll also want to tell your doctor what your goal is with this system. My goal would be, if I was going to the bathroom 20 times a day and I couldn't go to work, is to maybe only go to the bathroom 5 times a day and be able to go to work without worry. So I'll give you an example. My GI doctor is awesome. He kind of does a mix of the open and closed-ended questions. He starts with psychosocial, which I think is really cool. And I always love a doctor who remembers facts about me, just about my life beyond Crohn's disease. So when I get on the call, my doctor says, have you gotten married yet? How is it going with your husband? How is your dad? Things of that nature, which while it might not seem like important details, they're actually very telling. It gives him a little bit of light into my quality of life. And because he is my GI doctor, our next topic is my GI system. So he will broadly ask how I am feeling, and then he'll go into specifics like, do you have abdominal pain? How often is your abdominal pain? Do you notice when it's hurting more? Are you doing something that's causing that? Or is it just kind of randomly happening? Is there anything that's helping you with that abdominal pain? And then we get into, how do we want to resolve this? Where do we want to be when we resolve this? So I told him about my abdominal pain, when I notice it more, when I notice it less, what helps me, what doesn't help me, what I am hoping for, which is, no abdominal pain, and what I think might help. And I was actually the one that said, hey, I was on Humira in the past, can we try that again? So that was our plan. Then we went into my kidney surgery because he saw in my chart that I was admitted for the surgery, and he saw my scans and all of that. So he asked, how is that going? How are you recovering from that surgery? Are you having any issues with urination? Are you in any pain still from that surgery? Things of that nature, which I told him everything is well and I am doing great, and I'm following up with my urologist. And I also use my appointments to update my doctor. They do have the chart in front of them, but hearing it from a patient's perspective is always great to update them as well. So I told him, kind of our discovery with my proctocolectomy surgery and how my uterus seems to have flat, go away. My uterus seems to have tilted, which has caused some issues. So that way he was aware from a patient perspective. I think sometimes patients forget how vast a chart becomes very quickly. It is really hard to read every single note on a patient before an appointment. So I update my doctors also. A really important thing to also keep in mind, and it might be something you do throughout your conversation or at the end of your conversation, is have your list of questions. Don't think that you'll remember all of your questions when you get into the appointment. I guarantee you're going to forget at least one. I usually forget all of them, so I have to write them down to make sure that I actually ask them, and I ignore my own advice all the time, so then I wind up messaging the doctor after the appointment going, sorry, I forgot. Write down your question, make sure that you have answers, or at least a plan to get answers. And then the ultimate goal at the very end of your conversation is to summarize a plan, Even if your doctor kind of told you throughout that conversation, like, oh, GI wise, we'll do this scan, and GU will do this other scan. A good doctor at the end of the call will summarize everything that you are planning to do. And the really great thing is when you see them scheduling the stuff as they go, writing their notes as they go, so it's real time. That is like the best. All right, guys, I'm done. I'm ending. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you are feeling good. I will see you in the next. Bye.